Hello and welcome to Business 360. I'm Shireen Bhan. The headlines we're tracking for you this evening. The sensex and the nifty hit a record high, gaining nearly 1%. Bank stocks lead the rally. Mid-caps underperform. The government considers reviewing the public sector enterprise policy, which spelt out the privatization roadmap. Sources say the government may consider selling land parcels and monetize select assets, but it's likely to pull back on privatization due to the lack of political will. That's an exclusive. Adani Group plans to nearly double its capital expenditure this fiscal to 1.3 lakh crore rupees. Group CFO says the airports business will be listed by FY28. Adani also evaluating opportunities in the fintech space. Airwaves worth over 96,000 crore rupees up for grabs as the 5G auction kicks off. The sale is likely to see limited participation from Jio, Airtel and Vodafone Idea. The government and opposition lock horns over the Lok Sabha Speaker's post. NDA fields Om Birla and India bloc fields K. Suresh after talks to achieve consensus, setting the stage for a rare contest to the high office. Setback for Delhi Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal. The Delhi High Court stays a trial court order granting bail. The Supreme Court is scheduled to hear the case tomorrow. WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange is set to walk free after being holed up in London for over a decade. He will plead guilty to a US espionage case as part of an agreement that will see him return to Australia. At least 24 people killed in an Israeli airstrike in Gaza. Local authorities claim 10 people died while waiting for food assistance. The UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres accuses Israel of spreading misinformation about him. China becomes the first country to collect samples from the unexplored far side of the moon and bring them back to Earth. The rock and soil collected from the moon could help us understand how planets are formed. Well, let's first understand the market action for the day. The Sensex gained over 700 points and the Nifty was up over 180 points, hitting a record high in intraday trade. So that's the Sensex for you, 712 points higher. The Nifty putting on almost 200 points today, 23,721 is it where it's closed for the day. The Nifty Bank, look at the move on that one, 900 points higher. The bank stocks clearly leading the rally today. And mid-caps did see a bout of profit taking down by about 200 points. The index closing in the red. Prashant standing by with the market action. Prashant, strong close for our market, specifically the bank stocks.
A solid day for the frontline indices. The Nifty gaining about 0.8%, but the bank Nifty gaining almost a full 2%. And it was a purely financials-led rally today that we had, and that too concentrated within financials and private financials. And I'll explain in just a bit. For the broader market, it was a ho-hum kind of a day. The mid-cap index ending about 0.5% lower. The small-cap index flattening out for the day. So not very much in the broader market. Market breadth also decisively was in the negative, not by a huge margin, but in a decisive way. As I said, it was all about financials. So the top 4 gainers on the Nifty were all financials. You got Shriram Finance, Axis Bank, HDFC Bank, ICICI Bank, and you throw in a Bajaj Finserv as well. So it was about private financials all the way. What was under pressure? There was BPCL, iShares and Power Grid, which sort of looked down a little bit. In the broader market, as I said, more down than up. And I'll start with losers then. Happiest Minds, there was a big block, so reflected that. Railtel, Oberoi Realty, Bombay Burma. Some of these, of course, were also Bombay Burma was a big gainer yesterday, so pulled back today. JSW Energy, Exicom was a big mover yesterday, pulled back today. Reversals, Route Mobile, something similar. There was UBL, Lodha, which also were some of the top losers. In terms of gainers, you had while public sector companies and the index, the PSE index was down, you had names like Garden Reach Shipbuilders, which participated in the upside. Amar Raja, there was news flow with the technology tie-up, stock up. Craftsman Auto was a big mover. There was Raymond, which continues to gain 6-7%. PNB Gills, Wellspun Corp, Gabriel India. Atul Auto was a big mover. TBO Tech, 18% since that Goldman initiation over the weekend. There was Heritage Food, PGIL, Dhani Services and Newland Laboratories, some of which did well. So, not a dull day by any yardstick, but the leader clearly pulling its weight was financials today. Back to you.
All right, Prashant, many thanks for joining us. That was the market action. It's time now for our monsoon tracker. The Met Department expects heavy rains across several regions on the west coast over the next 3 days. These include Tamil Nadu, Kerala, Goa, Puducherry, South and coastal Karnataka and Gujarat. The Met has issued a red alert for sub-Himalayan West Bengal and Sikkim regions over the next 2 days. India's rainfall deficit narrowing to 17.8% as per data available till yesterday. This is a marginal improvement after 11 states witnessed normal to above normal rainfall. So better news there on the monsoon front. Now, the Adani Group plans to nearly double its capital expenditure this fiscal to 1.3 lakh crore rupees. The group CFO spoke to the media today and revealed that the airports business will be listed by FY28. Adani is also evaluating opportunities in the fintech space. Yash is standing by with more on Adani's plans. Yash.
We've had the flagship company Adani Enterprises finishing its media meet. And there are two important points that I want to highlight here, which sort of come out of this particular interaction. The first one is that FY25 year, the group is looking at a fundraise of nearly $2 to $3 billion. This will be through equity fundraise, and this will be at a group level. Largely, the sense that one gets from the interaction is that this year, that is FY25, will be largely about projects completion under the various Adani enterprise entities and less about taking up new projects. FY26 onwards is when new projects would again start coming in. The second important part is with respect to airports business, which comes under Adani Enterprises. The management has said that an IPO or a demerger of the airports business could happen by FY28. So that's the next value unlocking proposition which Adani Enterprise would look at. As far as businesses under the group are concerned, there's green hydrogen, there's airports, there's data centers, defense and aerospace, and digital labs. The most interesting part came on the green hydrogen business, where the management has said that they target about 1 MTPA production by FY30 and 3 MTPA production by FY32-33. Now, remember, this is important because about 1 MTA production requires 20 gigawatt of capacity, which straight away means that the group looks to put in place about 20 gigawatt manufacturing or production capacity by FY30 to be able to achieve that production of 1 MTPA. Another important point on the airport side would be the Navi Mumbai airport from Adani Enterprises. The indication is that that will happen in the current financial year as well.
All right, Yash, many thanks for joining us. That's the latest from the Adani Group. And here's the latest on the 5G auctions that are underway. They kicked off this morning. The government has put airwaves worth over 96,000 crore rupees on offer. Now, the auction is likely to see limited participation from the sector's top 3 players. These include Airtel, Vodafone and Jio. Rima standing by with more details. Rima, take us through the significance of the 5G auction, which kicks off today.
Thanks so much for that. So as you pointed out, 96,370 crore is on offer in terms of spectrum, which is across various bands: 800 megahertz, 900 megahertz, 1800 megahertz, 21 megahertz, 23 megahertz, 25 megahertz, 3300 megahertz, and 26 gigahertz. So across 8 frequency bands, and the total amount at the reserve price, which is on offer, is 96,300 crore rupees. Now, telcos have to give an earnest money deposited, which is an indication of how much they're willing to participate, right? Sort of like a collateral. Now, the amounts which have been deposited for Reliance Jio, 3,000 crore, Bharti at 1,050 crore, Vodafone Idea at 300 crore. You take the earnest money deposited, multiply by a factor of 12, and that's the maximum amount telecom companies will be able to bid. So if you do the math, the expectation is, or the indication is, that this spectrum auction could be muted because the EMD deposited by telcos is about 80% lower than last time, 2022. So for Reliance Jio, this time they've deposited 3,000 crore by way of a deposit, which compares with 14,000 crore last time. For Bharti Airtel, it's 1,050 crore versus a deposit of 5,500 crore last time. According to Jefferies, the amount that is being bid this year could be the lowest in close to about a decade. The reason is that all the 5G related spectrum purchase was already done in 2022. Telcos have completed their 5G rollout, so they don't need to purchase spectrum for 5G per se. So the spectrum which which will be purchased today is largely for renewal of spectrum where licenses are getting expired. So Reliance Jio has put in the most at 3,000 crore rupees compared to peers. It allows them to bid for a maximum of 96,000 crore rupee, but they do not have any spectrum which is coming up for renewal. Bharti does have about 42 megahertz of spectrum which is expiring. If they look to renew that, then the outlay could be about 3,800 crore rupees. But expectation is that maybe they might just bid for some more because Kotak anticipates 8,800 crore of bids by Bharti this time. But for Vodafone Idea, expect limited participation.
All right, Reema, many thanks for joining us. That's the latest there as far as the 5G auctions are concerned. Well, we are going to take the latest as far as the top political stories are concerned. For the first time in the history of independent India, the post of the Lok Sabha Speaker will be decided by an election. The ruling NDA government and the opposition bloc have both fielded candidates after talks failed to find a consensus. Now, the NDA has renominated BJP's Om Birla, who is a three-time MP from Rajasthan's Kota. As per Article 93 of the Constitution, the candidate who receives more than half the votes of the members present is elected at the Speaker. With NDA having the required numbers, the election of Birla looks like a foregone conclusion. It would be the first time since GMC Balayogi in 1999 that an outgoing Speaker would be re-elected. Meanwhile, the opposition has fielded Congress 8-term MP K. Suresh, currently the senior-most member of the Lok Sabha. Opposition parties claim the BJP did not want to concede the Deputy Speaker's post to the opposition as per convention. The BJP hit back at the opposition, saying they cannot dictate terms to the government. The post of the Deputy Speaker has been lying vacant since 2019.
Just now only filed a nomination. It's a party decision, not my decision. There is a convention in Lok Sabha, so Speaker will be in the ruling party, or opposition will be the Deputy Speaker. Last two Lok Sabha, they denied us. Now we are a recognized opposition. It's a Deputy Speaker is right for us, but they are not ready to give us. Again, till 11:50, we are waiting for the reply from the government side, but they didn't give any reply. That's why we filed.
खड़गे जी से माननीय राजनाथ सिंह जी ने चर्चा करनी चाहिए, पर वो किधर व्यस्त थे, तो उन्होंने कहा कि वेणुगोपाल जी आपको बात करेंगे। लेकिन जब बालू जी और वेणुगोपाल जी से बात हुई, उसमें जिस प्रकार से एक पुरानी मानसिकता है कि हम डिक्टेट करेंगे टर्म्स को, उस मानसिकता को फिर से दिखाया गया कि नहीं, शर्त है कि पहले लोकसभा का उपाध्यक्ष कौन होगा वो पहले तय करें, फिर अध्यक्ष के लिए समर्थन मिलेगा। इस प्रकार की राजनीति को हम की निंदा करते हैं।
Well, that is the latest from Parliament. The government is considering a review of public sector enterprise policy. This policy was notified in 2021 and it spelt out essentially the privatisation roadmap that the government put forward. Sources now tell us that the government may consider selling land parcels and monetising select assets, but may pull back on privatisation, then that's due to the lack of political will. Timsy is standing by with more details. Timsy, there is a policy that was notified in 2021. We haven't really seen too much privatisation. In fact, Air India is the only one. But what's the sense that you're getting? Are sources telling you that perhaps a review or a pullback is likely?
Well, that's right. Sources have told CNBC-TV18 that the government is mulling a review of the public sector enterprise policy, which spelled out the privatization roadmap. This policy, which was notified on 4th of February 2021 under the Atmanirbhar Bharat package, sources indicated that the review is likely to include revisiting the sales of the public sector enterprises under the policy. Government may consider selling land parcels, etc., monetization of select assets, but may pull back on the privatization bit. What sources indicate that political will currently is not in favor of exiting the family jewels, and however, as we speak, no decision finally has been made of this sort of a review of the policy, but yes, sources indicated that this could be in offing. Just to remind our viewers, government has already called off strategic sale of BPCL. The scope for PSE policy was to exit CPSEs, public sector banks, public sector insurance companies. However, the policy did not apply to certain classes of public sector enterprises, and it was divided in two parts, that was strategic sectors and non-strategic sectors. Strategic sectors where government decided to have bare minimum presence were, say, atomic energy, telecom, space, defense, transport, power, petroleum, coal minerals, banking, insurance and financial institutions. Whereas on the non-strategic side, that is the non-strategic sectors, where government considered privatization as the best option under the policy. So let's see what sort of a review happens, whether it happens, and how does it take shape in the future. Back to you.
All right, Timsy, as Timsy was pointing out, no decision has been taken. This is something that is currently up for discussion. Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman held pre-budget consultation meetings today with representatives of the trade and services sector. The key demands that the industry put forward include tax rationalization for MSMEs and tax incentives for R&D in order to boost exports. They also discussed easing of the transfer pricing regime and the development of Indian shipping line.
We said that in Indian Income Tax Act also, Section 35(2)(ab) should introduce a provision to provide 250 to 300% tax deduction on R&D spending. The second issue which we have raised with regard to developing an Indian shipping line of global repute, we are totally at the mercy of the foreign shipping line, and with the Red Sea crisis, many of the foreign shipping lines are escaping India. We said that MAI corpus may be increased to 500 crore annually, and the scheme should be on a recurring basis for next 5 years.
The main issue was, one is 43H implementation, which has created issues in the cycles of business for many enterprises. The second representation was a rationalization of taxes for certain MSMEs and especially the LLPs. And third was a rationalization of taxes for high net worth individuals also.
Well, the budget wish list continues. Now, the Mines Ministry is expected to seek higher budgetary allocation for developing critical mineral blocks as it seeks to pivot towards self-reliance. Abhimanyu standing by with the Mines Ministry's wish list for the Finance Minister. Abhi.
Sources have indicated that officials in the Ministry of Mines are slated to meet officials in the Union Finance Ministry for pre-budget consultation. Among several other demands is the demand for a possibly enhanced budgetary allocation for exploration and development of mineral blocks which have not been taken up by private parties. The Union government wants to operationalize several critical mineral blocks at the earliest to reduce import dependence for India, as India is largely import dependent on several critical minerals. As a case in point, India imports up to 95% of its copper needs. The metal is extensively used in households and industries, particularly in the electric and the plumbing segments. As far as lithium is concerned, India is the largest importer worldwide of processed lithium, and the metal finds extensive uses not just in industry but also in the manufacture of EVs and batteries. Even metals like tin and titanium find extensive use in spacecraft, automobiles and heavy industries, and India is looking to reduce import dependence in all these sectors.
Abhi, many thanks for joining us. We will head into a break, but up next, setback for Delhi's Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal. The Delhi High Court stays a trial court order granting bail. Kejriwal will move the Supreme Court tomorrow. That and more when we return. No relief for Delhi's Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal after a Delhi High Court stayed a trial court order that granted Kejriwal bail. The Supreme Court is scheduled to hear the case tomorrow. Ashmit is standing by now with the details. Ashmit, take us through the arguments put forward by the Delhi High Court as it overturned the trial court order.
The Delhi Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal suffering a fresh setback, this time at the hands of the Delhi High Court. The Delhi High Court agreeing with the Enforcement Directorate and staying, importantly, the bail order that had been granted by the trial court. So why is the High Court against this grant of bail? Well, the High Court found itself in agreement with the Enforcement Directorate and was critical of the stance taken by the trial court. The High Court very clearly, as a part of its order, which was pronounced at 2:30 p.m., very clearly held that there was not sufficient opportunity given to the Enforcement Directorate to make its case, that the submissions, the averments, the documents supplied by the Enforcement Directorate were not considered. There was not sufficient application of mind by the trial court on the documents and the submissions of the Enforcement Directorate, and that essentially calls into question this entire bail order. In fact, the High Court also held that the trial court has made observations which are contrary to findings that were arrived at by the Delhi High Court when it rejected Kejriwal's application challenging the arrest. So on all of these grounds, the Delhi High Court is very clear that it needs to stay this bail order, which necessarily calls into question about the way forward. Well, Kejriwal, importantly, just yesterday had moved the Apex Court, whereby it had challenged the stay granted by the Delhi High Court on Friday. And what's important is that the Supreme Court, while not passing any observations in this matter, had said that it wants to wait and watch for the position taken by the High Court and has later scheduled this matter for hearing tomorrow. So tomorrow will be a critical day. It holds the key to the Apex Court hearing. It holds the key to the fate of Arvind Kejriwal, whether he continues to stay locked behind bars or whether he becomes a free man courtesy the Apex Court.
Ashmit, many thanks. Now, Delhi's Water Minister Atishi was admitted to the hospital after her health deteriorated following an indefinite strike that she began last Friday. Atishi went on a strike after the Haryana government refused to release an additional 100 million gallons of water per day to Delhi amidst a water crisis in the national capital. AAP's Rajya Sabha MP Sanjay Singh said the party will raise the Delhi water crisis issue in Parliament. In international news, at least 24 Palestinians have been killed as Israel continues to intensify its attack on Gaza. 14 of the victims were killed in schools run by the United Nations in northern Gaza. 10 victims were relatives of Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh, including his sister. They were all killed in a home in the Shati refugee camp. In a statement, Hamas has accused the Biden administration of allowing the genocide in Gaza by giving political and military cover to Israel. WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange is set to walk free after being holed up in London for over a decade. He will plead guilty to a US espionage case as part of an agreement that will see him return to Australia. Remember, Assange was charged with conspiracy to obtain and disclose national defense information after the WikiLeaks site published secret US military records.
The correct course of action from the US government should have been to drop the case entirely. We will be seeking a pardon, obviously, but the fact that there is a guilty plea under the Espionage Act in relation to obtaining and disclosing national defense information is obviously a very serious concern for journalists and national security journalists in general.
Regardless of the views that people have about Mr Assange's activities, the case has dragged on for too long. There's nothing to be gained by his continued incarceration, and we want him brought home to Australia. And we have engaged and advocated Australia's interests using all appropriate channels to support a positive outcome, and I've done that since very early on in my Prime Ministership. I will have more to say when these legal proceedings have concluded, which I hope will be very soon.
Well, China has now become the first country to collect samples from the unexplored far side of the moon and bring them back to Earth. The rock and soil collected from the moon could help us understand how planets are formed. Two NASA astronauts, Sunita Williams and Barry Wilmore, are stuck on the International Space Station 2 weeks past their scheduled return. This as engineers work on fixing helium leaks in the Boeing Starliner spacecraft that carried the two astronauts to the ISS space vehicle had launched after multiple failed attempts. The astronauts were originally scheduled to return on the 13th of June, which was postponed to the 26th and then delayed indefinitely. Well, let's hope for their safe return. With that, it is time for us to wrap up this edition of Business 360. But before we go, here's a quick note of the top headlines that will hit your inbox every day before you call it a night. CNBC TV18's daily newsletter on LinkedIn, featuring the top 10 stories on markets, corporates, economic insights and financial highlights. So subscribe now, get the CNBC TV18 Edge. The news will continue after this short break.